The latest headlines.
The Houston Astros, the defending World Series champions, got better adding Garrett Cole.
The insightful interviews.
Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. With how much emphasis is put on the position, yet how many over the last couple of years we've had questions. Why do we put such an emphasis on drafting a quarterback number one overall?
The bottom line is there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. And I think with the new CBA, it's really a low-risk gamble now. If you look at the playoff teams, the common denominator, good quarterback play.
The hottest takes.
I think the guy to blame is the one guy who hasn't left yet. I think Russell Westbrook is one of the bigger problems in Oklahoma City.
Can all be found on Press Row.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Here's your host.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Christian Heimall.
Welcome back on Press Row, everybody, here on this Thursday, December 12th, 2019. Less than 2 weeks away from Christmas, and we hope you guys are enjoying the holiday season wherever you may be, and hope your travels will be safe whenever you take them. Got a great show in store for you, as we always do. Don't forget, we are presented by Public House Media. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Google or Apple Play. You can find us on Spreaker.com. Stitcher.com. You can also find us on the iHeartRadio podcast app, as well as, of course, the wonderful website known as publichousemedia.org, where there is some awesome and amazing wonderful gear that you can go out there and grab as a nice little holiday gift. You can go out there and get a Press Row hat, shirt, something, some fun stuff there for the holidays. We really will appreciate it. As always, you can get in touch with the show on social media, Twitter and Instagram handles at PressRowPHM. You can email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook at Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. One of the many ways you can get a hold of us and send us your listener questions every single day. We've got a few of those coming up in just a little bit. The MLB Hot Stove is in full effect. We'll touch on that towards the end of the show, but we're going to spend the majority of the time in the NFL here today. Mike Jones, NFL columnist for USA Today and host of the Jones Football Podcast. He's going to join us in just a little bit to talk everything NFL. We're going to discuss the favorites in both the AFC and the NFC. Lamar Jackson and what he has meant to this Baltimore Ravens team. But we are, of course, going to start with the New England Patriots. Once again, in the news for not so great stuff. Spygate 2.0, many of it are calling it. You can call it Do Your Job Gate, I guess, with any of this, production gate, whatever it might be. But the Patriots are once again potentially back up to their old ways. And that's the disturbing part about all of this. And those of you who are listening, you know the story by now. And if you don't, quick synopsis. A Patriots production crew or a crew that was hired by the Patriots to produce a web series that this week was focusing in on an advanced scout was caught filming in the press box during the Cleveland Browns-Cincinnati Bengals game this past weekend. That's a no-no. You can't film the sidelines from there. Apparently the Patriots had informed the Browns since it was in Cleveland, but they didn't inform the league or the Bengals, and that's what they're claiming is the oversight and what they're claiming is the only real issue. But the problem with all of this is the fact that this is now a consistent pattern for the New England Patriots. Again, Spygate, all the way back in 2007, fined $250,000, lost a first-round draft pick for violating the rules against using video to steal signs in 2007. Bill Belichick was fined $500,000 for that. You add in Deflategate 4 years ago. You add in the Santonio Brown situation, the Aaron Hernandez situation. You add all of these things in, and it almost becomes sort of a cultural thing for the New England Patriots, something that from the top down on the football side of things, I don't know how much, even the Robert Kraft situation, I don't know how much the owner is involved in any of this stuff, but if it is a web series, you'd have to think the owner is a part of this because this is more promoting his brand, his team, as opposed to the actual football stuff, which he has stayed away from famously over the last couple decades that he has owned that team. Meanwhile, this is Bill Belichick and his football staff. He is the head of football operations. He is the one who handles all of this stuff, including the scouting side of things, which if your advanced scout is giving permission and doesn't know the rules about filming in an NFL press box, I find that a little hard to believe. This is a guy who does his job and has been doing it for, I'm assuming, a very long period of time. But we'll wait and see what the video shows. We're going to ask Mike Jones about this in a little bit and see what kind of punishment might come down for the New England Patriots. It's not going to be anything that's going to prevent them from winning the AFC East or potentially going to the Super Bowl or potentially winning the Super Bowl here this year. But what it is going to do, potentially, again, is just stain the brand once again of one of the most hated franchises in all of sports. They are the evil empire of the NFL. They are the New York Yankees of that. The old-time Los Angeles Lakers, the old-time Dallas Cowboys. They're that team that everybody loves to hate. And this is just another stepping stone in this very long, another chapter in this very long and an unfortunate saga for the New England Patriots of these things that they just can't get out of their own way with these issues that are really off the field, but somehow come back to the football side of things. We're going to talk with Mike Jones again right after the break, NFL columnist for USA Today, host of the Football Jones podcast. He's going to join us in just a couple moments. Your listener questions as well. We are on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media, or find us on Twitter and Instagram at Press Row PHM. You can also email the program, pressrowphm@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Peggy Rojas, host of Viviendo una Vida en Balance here at Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you can come back and check my show, Viviendo una Vida en Balance, where we talk about life hacks to live a life in balance. And this show's in Spanish. A new show comes out every Monday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and share with your friends. Again, thank you for checking out the following broadcast in Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Welcome back on Press Row. Christian Heimall here with you, broadcasting as we do every single week as part of the Public House Media Network. Don't forget to try to be part of the show. Tweet us and send us your listener questions on social media. Simply search Press Row Podcast. Big news NFL this week with the college football playoff being pretty much easily figured out and no real qualms there. We can focus heavily in on the NFL, and to help us do that, NFL columnist for USA Today. He's also the host of the Football Jones podcast. He is Mike Jones, and he joins us once again here on the show. Mike, appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And, Mike, let's get right into the biggest news of the week. The New England Patriots, obviously, what some are calling Spygate 2.0, this production crew for a web series that they do on Patriots.com, getting caught filming the Bengals sideline during this past week's Bengals-Browns game. First off, what do you make of this, and what potential punishment could we see from the NFL?
Well, I mean, it's just so silly sounding when you think that, okay, the vaunted Patriots are spying on the pathetic Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the teams, maybe, spy on the Chiefs or spy on the Ravens, but the Bengals, who couldn't beat anybody, outside of the Jets. I mean, I just don't understand how desperate you are. Obviously, they can, they released a statement saying that the football operations didn't know anything about it aside from the scout being filmed. I don't know if you can buy that, especially when you hear that, the guy wanted to just give them the tape and have it deleted. It's all so murky, and the optics are bad because of their track record. I mean, Goodell's got to come down hard on them. It's got to be, just even if it wasn't, because it is so murky and so similar to their past, he's got to find them, draft picks and or money.
That's kind of the biggest thing about this, I think, is, obviously the optics of it probably is what makes the punishment worse. If this had been, one-time offense, it might be a little bit of a different story here, especially if it does turn out to be a production crew that has nothing to do with football operations. But how much of it is the track record of the Patriots as the reason for whatever punishment Roger Goodell may hand down?
I think that's why. I think that if it was the first time it happened, yeah, they would have taken the tape, been a slap on the wrist. But because it is again, that's when you feel like they've got to do something. I think that last time Bill Belichick was fined like $500,000, and I think it was a first-round pick or something like that, and the team was fined. I think you got to go similar here, because if you're the Patriots, you got to be above board and make sure you're never, ever again in a situation that seems this way. and the fact that this happened again and again. I know it's just the Bengals, but still, you don't know how many other times that they'll, try to pull this off. I mean, did they test it out with the Bengals to see if they'd be able to get away with it later on, coming up, preparing for the playoffs or what? I don't know. But they've got to punish them because of the track record more than anything.
Speaking with Mike Jones, NFL columnist for USA Today and host of the Football Jones podcast. Let's stick with the Patriots here because they're a team that obviously the offense doesn't look near as vaunting as it used to be. The defense has been maybe one of the best the Patriots have ever put together, but struggling against top quality opponents. Their 3 losses have come against the 3 division winners in the AFC. What do you make of this team in terms of their playoff chances and where things can maybe kind of improve before getting to the postseason?
I'll never bet against the Patriots completely because of, last year, this time of year, we were like, look, their offense is good, but their defense gives up way too many yards. Mm-hmm. And then week 16 on, their defense turned into gangbangers, and we see how they are now. So there's a lot they've got to figure out in a short amount of time. They need N'Keal Harry to continue to develop. They need – none of their wide receivers are winning one-on-one matchups right now. That's a big problem that we saw when they were playing the Chiefs. Their defense, I know the Chiefs' defense is gradually getting better, but they've struggled a lot to stop teams, especially their pass defense. And the Patriots weren't winning one-on-one matchups. You see Tom Brady more and more frustrated, telling his guys they got to be fast, they got to be more explosive. They've got to figure out a way to supercharge this offense. We've seen them throw gimmick plays in there, trying to manufacture explosiveness, which is something that we didn't normally have. But I do think that we also have to take into account Tom Brady's getting older. And Father Time is right there tapping on his shoulder because remember for years, we always praised Brady for them being able to just plug anybody into that system and he makes them great. Outside of Randy Moss or Gronkowski. Remember, Julian Edelman was not anything. Danny Amendola was a guy that, he's gone from there, and now he's back to just being like an average Joe. They've had plenty of guys that they plug in, and they become stars because they're playing with Tom Brady. Well, now you've got the same, guys that are just okay talent-wise, and Brady's not able to elevate their games the way that he has been in the past. So I think that Father Time is some of this, and you just don't know if he's got enough, if they have enough to be able to beat these teams like the Rams and the Ravens, and I'm sorry, not the Rams, the Chiefs and the Ravens when they run into them into the playoffs.
How much of this is the lack of offensive weapons and how, because I was in Baltimore on that Sunday night game and watched the Ravens really handle that defense and really be the toughest test that defense has faced all year. And when you look at the 3 losses, there's one common thread outside of them being division winners, and that is mobile quarterbacks. How much of the Patriots' struggles is the lack of offensive weapons around Tom Brady, or is it more, that the defense maybe just struggles against Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and those mobile quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, I think that obviously their explosiveness, the lack of explosiveness on offense makes it more difficult for their defense. There's more pressure on them to have to stop these guys because there's such a small margin for error for the defense because the offense can't wipe out any of their transgressions. The defense has to be great enough to hold the other team in check and get turnovers to try to help the offense out. But one of the things that's so difficult for any defense when you're going against a mobile quarterback is it's hard to simulate that in practice. You don't see it every week. You don't have a guy that you can go up against in practice who's got the same skill set. You can put a wide receiver there and run option plays, but your guys aren't as familiar with those concepts, and so your scout team is not going to be at the same level. And so it's hard to be prepared to stop that. Now, I am very curious to see what Bill Belichick would cook up the second time around facing Mahomes or facing Lamar Jackson, because then you have a little bit more familiarity and you have tape of how your guys played against them, and you can see the issues that you need to correct and tweak. But even so, yes, when you have a dual threat quarterback like that, you've got really athletic guys, and the shiftiness that Lamar Jackson has, those Patriots defenders were all around him. They were hitting their angles, but he's able to stop on a dime and just escape, and there's nothing you can do about that. I don't care how good you are as a defender.
That being said, if I gave you the Patriots or the field in the AFC, who are you taking?
I have to take the field,
okay.
I think, just because, I mean, right now, again, you can never count them out, but still, if it's the field versus them, we've seen them lose to the divisional leaders, and that the explosiveness on offense just is not there. Again, they could cook something up. They could hit their stride week 16 and roll into the playoffs, but it's going to be hard for them because they probably aren't going to have home field advantage, and all of their Super Bowl success, except for last year, has come when they've had home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So it just makes it that much more challenging for them.
Let's focus in on the Ravens here. In Lamar Jackson, maybe more specifically, this is a team that most people did not expect them to be where they currently are. And yet you've got a guy who is probably the front runner for the MVP, if not Russell Wilson in Seattle. But what has Lamar Jackson's evolution meant to this Baltimore Ravens organization and this year's team?
Oh, well, he's completely energized the organization, and the team as well. They have an offense that is among the league leaders in points and yards. He is getting it done. I went there early in training camp, and then later in training camp when they practiced against the Eagles. And I was just like, okay, I can tell they're trying to work to get the ball out of his hands quickly, but he's not very accurate still. Fast forward to the season, that work that they did during training camp, those growing pains, the lumps that he took then, we don't see them there. Yes, I know that he struggled passing-wise against the 49ers. There's a wet ball, the rainy conditions. But he has really done way better as a passer than I think anybody anticipated. When you have an offense that can control the clock and that keeps pressure off your defense, they're fresh. So they're not on the field too long. They can be more explosive. They can pin back their ears and come after a team. It's just helped that offense and that team as a whole on every level because Lamar Jackson is so good.
How much credit do you give Coach Harbaugh in letting Lamar Jackson be Lamar Jackson and not trying to change what he does to fit the NFL system?
Oh, I think that's everything. Because we saw last year they used him in a little, spot-up duty here and there or little flashes when Joe Flacco was there. And when Flacco got hurt, they're like, okay, let's turn it over to him. And they basically ran like a high school offense. But instead of saying, okay, we were just getting out of you what we could at the time, but now you come run our offense, you run an NFL offense the way that we've designed it and have run it for years, they went into the lab and they said, okay, how can we take what he does best and build on that? And also position him for success, not just as a runner, like we saw for the second half of last season, but also as a passer. Greg Roman, John Harbaugh, the flexibility that John Harbaugh had in saying, because a lot of these coaches, it's ego-driven. Look at the Washington Redskins. For so long, Dwayne Haskins wasn't on the field because Jay Gruden was like, well, he's not ready. He's not able to run my offense. Instead of saying, what does the kid do well? How can I position him for success? The Ravens didn't care about tradition or egos. They just said, we've got a super talented player. We're invested in him. How do we build him up and position him to lead us? And Harbaugh promoted Greg Roman as their offensive coordinator. They went into the lab. They designed this offense. And so I think that a lot of credit has to go to them for being willing to overhaul their offense and run something that is successful.
Talking with Mike Jones, NFL columnist and for USA Today and host of the Football Jones podcast. Let's switch over real quick to the NFC because it seems as though it's been fairly quiet from a national discussion standpoint. The 49ers have been great. Jimmy Garoppolo is starting to show and has been consistently showing the flashes that everybody expected the heir of Tom Brady to be. Seattle Seahawks are quietly being a great Super Bowl contender. The New Orleans Saints have been very, very good again in that division. What do you make of the NFC and the potential favorites coming out of there for the Super Bowl?
Well, I think that the NFC is crazy because, look, just this past week alone, the 49ers went into that week as the 5th seed after losing to the Ravens. And the Seahawks were the number 1 seed. Well, this past week, the 49ers beat the Saints, the Seahawks lose to the Rams, who had looked like they were on life support, and all of a sudden it flip-flops where the 49ers are the number 1 seed again, the Seahawks are the 5 seed. You just don't know. It's going to be a dogfight down the stretch of these last 3 weeks. The Rams have to play the 49ers again. We have to see what's going to happen with the Seahawks. I really think that you could flip a coin and any of those 3 teams, whether it's the Seahawks, the Saints, or the 49ers, are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And, I mean, outside of the NFC East, let's just scrap them and just stay home and take a forfeit. But the rest of the teams in the NFC that are in that playoff picture have a legitimate chance. And I guess I would have to give a little bit of an edge to the 49ers just because of their defense. Obviously, the Seahawks are very well-rounded. They beat them. But I think that if they in the rematch, I'm going with the 49ers. And there's just been a couple chinks in the armor that we've seen with the Saints. And so that's why I'll give a slight edge to San Francisco, even though, like I said, if either 3 of those teams were in the Super Bowl, I would still think that they have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on the Green Bay Packers and the Vikings doing things out in the north there. Really talented and really exciting NFC playoff picture, minus, of course, that one division. And I want to bring it to that and close things out with you by asking about this, because some people have been discussing it this week since the Cowboys, for whatever reason, can't find a way to win this division, even though they're clearly the most talented team. Even the Eagles struggled against Eli Manning on Monday night in Philadelphia. Do you see a scenario at any point where the NFL could realistically alter and reseed their playoff format so that a division winner with a sub 500 or 500 record isn't hosting? Because the 49ers could go on the road to the Cowboys or the Seahawks. Somebody with a great record is going to go to Dallas, a team that may not even have a 500 record.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's something that we in the media and the fans talk about, but I don't think it's something that the NFL will do. I don't think teams will go for that. Because, I mean, there's a lot at stake for winning your division. That kind of weakens the, you won your division, but you still might not get home field. I think it's so rare that we'll have a situation where a division is down. I remember it was a few years ago, I think it was, Seattle didn't have was right around 500 or something like that. But I don't think that we'll see it a lot. This is just a weird year for the NFC East, and if this continued to happen where you had a division or multiple divisions where the division winner had a subpar record and you have other teams, the wild card teams with the superior record. But again, it doesn't happen a whole lot. So that's why I think it'll stay the same.
He's Mike Jones, NFL columnist for USA Today and host of the Football Jones podcast. Mike, as always, we appreciate the time. We'll be listening. We'll be reading. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Mike Jones of USA Today and, of course, the Football Jones podcast. Appreciate his time, as always. Take a quick break. When we come back, your listener questions, you're on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. Or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com.
This is Jenna Burt, host of the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Confessions of a Military Spouse, where we dig deep and talk about the unspoken hard truths of what it's really like to be a military spouse. A new show comes out bi-weekly. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Confessions of a Military Spouse. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Welcome back on Press Row. Christian Heimall here with you as we wrap up shop on this Thursday, December 12th, 2019. Get you to your listener questions as you can submit them every single week on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. First one from Joe in New York. With Garrett Cole signing a record deal with the New York Yankees, is this a good thing for baseball? I think it's a great thing for baseball. As much as I am a Red Sox fan, and as much as it pains me to see Garrett Cole going to the Yankees, for that, I think baseball is great, and I've said this so many times. Baseball is at its best when the Red Sox and Yankees are competing for championships, whether it be in the AL East, whether it be the AL pennant, whether it be the World Series. Baseball is at its best when those two markets are competitive. And the Red Sox, despite their struggles last year, still were the defending world champions in 2019, still won a title in 2018. They have all the makings of another championship team there. Yes, they're going to lose some pieces here and potentially trade away some pieces as we head into 2020. But like I mentioned with the Patriots earlier, likening them to the evil empire, that is what is great about baseball. The New York Yankees, when they were the most hated team in baseball in the late 90s, when they were signing guys for ridiculous amounts like Randy Johnson and Kenny Rogers, Gary Sheffield, when they were bringing over Hideki Matsui, when they were bringing guys in like Giambi and all these crazy contracts to bring in these guys, CC Sabathia, to try to continuously dominate Jacoby Ellsbury, Johnny Damon, just to dominate and spend an absorbent amount of money and try to buy a championship. That's great for baseball because you need it. You need villains. You really do. You don't want to watch a movie where everybody gets along and it's all good stuff. You need a villain. You need a plotline. You need someone to hate. And for baseball fans, you either love or you hate the New York Yankees. And this is a great way to help get baseball back into that mindset, because the Yankees have just gone through the first decade where they didn't even compete for a world championship, didn't even win a pennant. And now you've got a team that was right there on the cusp. You've got a team that has Giancarlo Stanton, has Aaron Judge under a insane amount of team control. You've got a great offense with Aaron Hicks and a bunch of those other players that are there. Frazier, if he comes back, Gardner's still able to do things. You've got obviously Miguel Andujar, Gleyber Torres, Luke Voit. There's so much talent on that Yankees team. The one thing missing, especially now with the retirement of CC Sabathia, is a dominant number one front of the line starter, and they have that with Garrett Cole, and spending $324 million over 9 years is what is going to help get fans back into that mindset of love them or hate them, the New York Yankees. Now, Garrett Cole's going to opt out after 5 years in 2024 like he can, barring injury or barring a really terrible year, but that's what's going to end up happening so he can go and get more money. But this is a great thing, I think, for baseball, just because it gets that hatred back, that boil, that churning in your gut when you see, oh, God, the Yankees are doing it again. It's a great thing for baseball because you need people to root against. You need villains, and I'm pretty sure Yankee fans are going to be more than happy to welcome that sentiment back, especially if it gets them their first world championship in 11 years, which is a little ridiculous to say. Second question here. Jaden asking here about Louisville losing the other night, becoming the fourth number one team to lose here this year. What does this mean for college basketball come March Madness? I don't think it means much, to be 100% honest. Yes, you've had Duke lose on their home court to Stephen F. Austin. You had Kentucky lose. You had Louisville lose. You've had so many of these number ones already go down just 6 weeks in, just a month and a half into the season. But it's nothing crazy, to be 100% honest, because eventually all this stuff rises to the top. The cream rises. When we get to March Madness, you're going to see these blue bloods. You're going to see Louisville. You're going to see Duke. You're going to see North Carolina, potentially, as long as Cole Anthony and the rest of that crew can get it together. You're going to see Kentucky, Kansas. You'll see Maryland there. You might even see Michigan there. I think what Juwan Howard is doing in Michigan is incredible. So I don't think it means much right now. It's exciting. It's fun to talk about because the non-conference slate of college basketball can get very, very boring. So it's fun to talk about, but other than that, I don't think it really means much. It just means a little bit of extra, I guess, I don't know, airspace, something, a subject matter to talk about on shows like this. But that's really all about it. Last one here. Mike asking, did the College Football Playoff Committee get it right with LSU number 1 and Ohio State number 2? Yes, they got it unequivocally right now. They lucked into it, to be 100% honest, but that's how it works out. LSU, I know Ohio State has 5 wins over top 25 teams. LSU only has 4, but LSU has 4 wins in the top 13. Meanwhile, Ohio State has a total of 2, one of them being of course, the Wisconsin Badgers at 8. And again, I know a lot of people are saying, how great they were in the second half, but you only had that second half because of how terrible your first half was. LSU went out and completely dominated from start to finish a team that the committee thought was ranked 4th in the country. That being said, I'll be honest, I think that's the worst thing for Ohio State because I think they actually lose to Clemson, and I do think it's Clemson-LSU for the national title, but we can get into that next week a little bit more as well. As always, appreciate your guys' listener questions. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram handles at PressRowPHM. You can email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook at Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. Big thanks to Mike Jones, NFL columnist of USA Today and host of the Jones Football Podcast. You can find him on Twitter at @ByMikeJones. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family wherever you get your podcast, Google, Apple Play, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, iHeartRadio, and of course, PublichHouseMedia.org. Until next week, folks, we'll see you on Press Row.